There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
Oh, what's up? Welcome into episode number 83 of the Program Guyz podcast. My name is Mason Prince, joined you as always by Ryan Tyson, Mark Hall, Matt Gann, Patrick Kurtzberger. Today is Wednesday, August 9th. Be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We are trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the time the football season starts. Folks, we only have 3 weeks until the season starts. Help us hit 2,000 subs by the time we get there. You can follow us on Twitter at Program Guyz with a Z, our Instagram Program Guyz with a Z, our Facebook page Program Guyz Podcast, on TikTok at Program Guyz. Patrick, how many followers on TikTok now? Tell me.
Around 620 or so.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're on the up and up, baby. On the up and
On
up.
the up and up.
So follow us on TikTok. You can follow us on Threads if Threads is still alive. Who the hell knows?
I don't think
You
it's
can-
we
still
got a follower on Threads today, and I was about to
Dang.
stop posting, but I was like, this one person
Yeah,
is keeping us
one
going.
person. Yeah, you
Still
can
looking
you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of that good stuff as well. Gentlemen, how we doing? My technical difficulties continue for yet another week. I'm going to just freak out if this is not solved by the time the season rolls around, but we're here. I'm here with my boys. How we living?
Hey, we're doing good. I'm going to go ahead and take over the first part of the podcast. I'm going to get ahead of the game here because every single time I miss a podcast, you guys always bust my balls if I listened or not. I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of last week's pod. Let's go ahead and get started. Patrick, your teams are horrible, and you're not going to get a CJ Stroud jersey this year. There's no way. They get 7 wins. I know you guys went over the commits. Not too much going on, but we love to see it. But then Mason did say Marcus James twice, and Mark caught you slipping on that one. Jacob Sexton, when we're talking about the injuries, he actually tore his ACL in the last year's game, actually played a couple of snaps, but then got off-season surgery. So hopefully he's making good progress there. Another injury you guys talked about was Trace Ford. Today's conversation for practice, Rondell Bothroyd says Trace Ford is healthy now and the fastest D lineman he has ever seen in his life. Mark, joke's on you. He tried to catch Mason slipping up for announcing all the Emmett Jones wide receivers. Mason was correct on that. And then Mark, 30 seconds later, said, give me a spray tan every time. I'm not sure where that's coming from. That's awesome. What I really found out was Ryan loves Gavin Freeman. He compared him to Drake Stoops, but Patrick also thinks he could be Marquise Brown. That's some big talk for Gavin Freeman. You love to see that. Mark talked about the starting 05 for the linemen. That's incredible content. He's a big Connor Neer guy. Watch out for that guy coming up. Mason had a great quote from Todd Bates about 5 300-pound linemen. Patrick calls it the big D. We love to see it. Mason came with his own must watch. Guys, this is the greatest podcast episode I have ever seen and listened to. Big shout out if you've not listened to it. Great last week's episode. Just want to let you know I did listen to it all the way through. Proud of you guys.
Gotta love it. 83 episodes in and Matt Gann listens. I'm proud of you, man. That's awesome. Good job. Almost
That was
dedicated.
great, Matt.
That was,
Yeah.
I agree. That was
great.
wonderful. Thanks
That
for
was
going off
good.
script there. We really appreciate it.
Really proud of you. So, Matt, leading us into this week's episode number 83. We got some recruiting news today. Tonight is Tuesday, August 8th. We're recording this 7 o'clock in the evening. So as of right now, the recruiting news that we're going over. So Josh Isosa commits to OU. Liam Evans commits to OU. And we have some crystal balls for Nigel Smith and Williams Winery. Anybody want to go over those crystal balls real quick?
I'm still questionable about the Williams Winery crystal balls. There has been a lot of things happening on X, formerly known as Twitter, where a lot of people are dropping crystal balls as jokes, and I get confused on like which ones are actually true and which ones are not.
No one should be dropping crystal balls unless they're 100% sure.
Well, I don't even think that's the.
We have one of those guys here,
but they're popping up with like these recruiting like analyst names that like are spoofs on everything else. They're like fake, essentially, and everyone knows they're fake. But like there's so many of them, there's getting more and more. So I don't know. Do we actually have a Winery real crystal ball in the past week?
We do.
Who was it?
Yeah, who was it? I know
I can
Nigel
look
Smith
at it.
had a real
I know
one
Nigel
from
Smith had a couple.
Colin
Okay,
Kennedy
I'll look at
at 247, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure if any Williams Winery one came through that was real. Patrick sent us one from at DryFit Venables, and that's a good OU
Yeah.
account, but isn't like generally someone dropping that kind of content. So it was hard to know whether or not to take it seriously. You know, as someone with a documented 100% success rate on dropping my balls for these players,
100%.
there's a reason you haven't seen me just yet, right? The Nigel Smith race is tight. That's a Texas kid. There are Texas schools in the race. Williams Ranieri might be going to Missouri. He might be going to Georgia. Missouri is actually considering paying him the governor's salary in addition to NIL money and letting him run the state. That's a part of the deal as I'm hearing it. But you know, that's a lot of pressure on a kid too. So we could see a lot of things happen in that one. Patrick, were you able to confirm that?
It was the one that DryFit retweeted.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I did see someone from either 27 Sports or On3, I can't remember, that confirmed that Williams has made his commitment already. He already knows where he's going. He's just going to announce on the 14th. So his mind is made up. It sounds like there's no going back at this point. Again, in nowadays, I feel like you got to take that a little bit with a grain of salt, because Missouri actually just passed a law not too long ago where he can go ahead and take advantage of his NIL money and go ahead and start getting money right away. So obviously that's going to play in the favor when he makes that decision, that he can start making money now instead of potentially waiting a year or two before he gets on to another college campus. But I think that's going to be a really tight recruiting between us and Missouri. I've seen some people lean to OU from the past, but it's just hard to know until we get to the 14th. We hope he comes this way.
Matt, I'm glad that you brought up his date. I think it'd be instructive to run through a few of the OU target commitment dates that are coming up. We've got Caden Durham on August 10th announcing at the same time as his high school teammate, five-star pass rusher Colin Simmons. They both have LSU on their list and no other teams alike. I'll give you one guess what I think is going to happen there. Past that, August 12th, four-star wide receiver Jaden Nickens. He's a 25 player. He is committing then. Williams Ranieri, five-star defensive lineman, August 14th, as Matt Gann said. Three-star athlete Andy Bass, the possible Caden Durham replacement, on August 24th. Five-star David Stone. I dropped my balls for him. August 26th is when he is announcing his commitment. September 8th, four-star defensive lineman Nigel Smith, the subject of today's crystal ball. Ryan, on that list, take off David Stone, take off Williams Ranieri. Who do you want to get the most? We talk too much about these guys. It's every episode.
I want Nigel Smith for sure. I think that when we look at, you know, Caden Durham, he would be awesome, and Andy Bass would be awesome, but we also have Taylor Tatum, and you know, we have others there. I like Jaden a lot. That's 25, right? That's 2025, so that's like a little different. Give me Nigel Smith. I want to give you guys an update on the DryFit Venables crystal ball to Williams Winery.
Okay.
So he posted it, and he said it was from national recruiting analyst Clay Cosgrove. Clay Cosgrove, from what I am finding, does not exist, and it's Clint Cosgrove. And Clint Cosgrove retweeted it and said, "My long lost cousin," with a bunch of question marks and laughing emojis. And as of now, Clint Cosgrove has not flipped his pick from Missouri to Oklahoma.
So that's why we've been seeing the misnamed insiders on Twitter this week. I've seen the name
yes,
like Preston Thune or Parker
people
Thorne
are making this like a
1,000
joke.
times.
People are making it a joke, and they're turning him. This is why I said we can't trust anything that's on Twitter right now.
Oh my gosh.
So, and if you like don't know their names, you could easily like get all messed up. I saw like instead of Steve Wiltfong or whatever, they said like Danny or something like that. Yeah, something like that. So that's just an update on that. I think it's still right now kind of split between Missouri and OU with some of the crystal balls that are already out there. The big question mark is Missouri is throwing a massive bag at him, like huge.
They
Like,
have to.
they have
They
to.
have to.
I mean, it's an in-state kid. They want to keep him. I get it. You can't match that. So, and they shouldn't.
We don't know
And
that.
They shouldn't. Not with their eyes on other 5 stars. They shouldn't. So
There's no cap, so like, why not?
it's
It's
I
not
just
our
like
cash. You're not.
I don't know.
I mean,
They're just
don't
throwing
check another
everything
man's
they
pocket,
have.
Ryan.
We're not Texas, right? We don't have just unlimited amount of money. So
So I have 2 points. Number one, to Mark's question about who I want off that list, Caden Durham. To me, it's a no-brainer. So I would love that running back room to just be stacked and be the best room in the country for anything ever, always. Like, what good running backs get you in college football. Like, we saw Sony Michel and Nick Chubb dominate with Georgia. You couldn't stop them in the Rose Bowl. We know how important it is to have a stable of running backs who are 4-star, 5-star athletes. It's really, really good. Also, I want to mention Josh Isosa. Josh Isosa committed, another in-state kid, Edmond Santa Fe, 3-star. He's, according to 247 is what I got. He's the 13th ranked player in the state of Oklahoma, and he is committed to OU. 6'3.5", 305. 305 in high school is great size. He's got the size to be an interior offensive lineman. Look for him to play guard when he gets to OU. I'm super excited about him. I get to see him play here in a couple weeks. He's actually playing Jinx to open the season, so I'm going to get to see him play. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But Josh Isosa, my guy to watch on the income.
That is
incoming
awesome.
commits.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You get to watch him. Okay, not only is he the best player in his respective position at offensive line, our new kicker who just committed, Liam Evans, is also the best kicker in Oklahoma. So we're getting the best guys in the best positions in Oklahoma. I love to see that.
Perfect. Anybody else on the recruiting front?
I mean, do we think Caden Durham is coming?
Oh yeah, sorry. I kind of
I
segued
don't.
and didn't.
So
I kind of segued and didn't. Yeah. So Caden Durham, he's committing on Thursday. Ryan is on record as saying he does not feel great about that. Caden,
I think he's going to LSU.
I mean, yeah, I don't really know. Matt, what do you have to add?
Yeah, I think once Tatum committed, I think that was the last nail in the coffin for Caden Durham. I'm sure Brian Kelly, I think Mark said this multiple times, just whispering some good nothings in Caden Durham's ear that he would be the featured back, want to compete with 2 other guys when you can be the guy in Baton Rouge, plus having his teammate commit on the same day and both of them having the same teams. I can definitely see them both committing to LSU on the 10th. That would be my guess.
I don't think it's a coincidence that Caden Durham pushed up his commitment date after Mikel Patterson McDonald committed to OU. That's why I'm feeling good about it.
I'm glad you feel good about it. I don't really know how I feel about it. Like, I feel either way it happens, I'm going to say, like, yeah, I saw that coming. So, like, if he commits to OU, I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I saw it coming. Social media, he tweeted anytime someone committed to OU, thought it was cool, yada, yada, all that stuff. But then if you also tell me, hey, he's going to commit to LSU, he's going to LSU, I'll be like, yeah, I get it. There's other running backs on the roster, good running backs at that. They don't want to be a crowded. So, I don't know. I'm literally awful at this. We're trying to give takes here, right? And I don't really have a take. I have no take. My take is I have no take.
They either both go to LSU or they go to OU in Texas, and it doesn't seem like you planned that with your buddy. So I think he's going to LSU.
That's a good point. That was also one of the first things I thought of too, Mark, when I saw that 247 was doing a combined commitment announcement, and I saw both LSU logos underneath them. I was like, okay, well that may be something. So who knows? Let us know down below in the comments, folks. We read every single one of your comments on our YouTube channel. And anytime you tweet at us, comment on our posts, all that stuff, we read all of those. So keep on commenting. We appreciate you. Be part of the program. Helps us out more than you know. Help that algorithm. You know what I mean? So, all right, boys. Fall camp's underway. Media's out at fall camp, taking some videos at the beginning of practice. We've seen some videos of Brent Venables yelling, being upset. We've seen some some videos of how good the running backs look, how good some of the wide receivers look. Anybody have anything from fall camp? I mean, they're not. Nothing's really come out, I guess, is what I'm saying. I feel like it's just this is where we're at. We're waiting for it to start.
I think the biggest thing. Go ahead, Ken.
Wow.
Oh,
All three of us.
Ooh.
A three for.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just gonna say, I think the biggest thing that I've seen is a lot of like reports of some of the players just speaking about how this feels completely different than last year. They feel so much more comfortable. They feel so much more ready, so much more prepared. Obviously, we're gonna see if that's actually true come in like 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks. But like that's always good to hear. It's good to hear that we're like. We looked discombobulated last year. We had a brand new system. People were trying to learn. It seems like they're a little bit more comfortable with it. They have a little bit more experience, and hopefully we'll see that like on the field.
I'm going to come back to that new system you got to learn in just a little bit, Ryan, by the way. All right, Patrick, what do you got?
Same thing. Ken?
Love it. Matt Gann, anything to add?
Man, a few words. Let me tell you.
I'm not going to repeat it. I mean, yeah.
Hey, I just want to say I didn't mention this, but in the beginning, I did a stopwatch for last week's pod. Under 4 minutes of talking for you, Patrick. Really impressive.
I think that's true at all.
You are killing it, my man. Man, a few words. Anyways, back to last week's podcast. I think Mason made a great point about all the hype that we were going around Gavin Freeman having the best camp and all that. And I think you mentioned, Mason, and please correct me if I'm wrong, having a good fall camp is one thing, but actually producing on the field is a whole nother thing. So will Gavin Freeman be a potential guy? Maybe. We want some of these guys, especially the wide receiver core, to step up because we all know Jalil Farouk's going to be the guy. I'm actually really excited about Petaway. I've heard he's made really good strides, but again, fall camp is one thing. I've seen some good clips on Nick Anderson and some of these other guys, but who's going to be the true number 2 guy that DG can rely on? Maybe that's Austin Stogner coming back, or one of the other tight ends as well. So I'm glad to see these guys in pads. They definitely look physically bigger and stronger and faster than what we've seen last year. So I'd love to see the improvement that Smitty has been putting in the offseason. I just want to see the results on the field. We keep hyping this team up. I'm just trying to cool my expectations just a little bit because I want to see the on-field results.
Mark.
Yeah, there was a video today that went around of USC head coach Lincoln Riley being interviewed about the effect of Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten. And he just seems to be like, we're the best. We're going to recruit against the best. So kind of the same, whatever, man. And this is in the middle of trying to build the next great USC team. That's what this man sounds like. Brent Venables the other day was filmed coaching his linebackers and gets in their faces about the way they're not stepping right. And then they do it again. And then they do it again. And then you go to the end of the line. There's a video of Brent Venables the other day grabbing Peyton Bowen during a special teams drill and telling him, and you can hear it, everything matters. You can't hear everything, but everything matters. As we enter year 2 of the Brent Venables era, I couldn't be more positive about the coaching staff and the development and the direction and the attitude, because attitude breeds attitude, and players are going to follow that. They already do. Danny Stutzman is like a little Brent Venables half the time. And this time a year ago, he wasn't. He still got the sword, but
that stupid sword.
These guys emulate the leader, and you can either have someone sulking around, pissed off that Jerry Jones hasn't called yet, or you can have someone whose 2 feet are where they're at right now, wanting to make everyone better to go win the conference in their last year. And that's the vibe that I get out of OU camp right now.
It's perfect. Let us know down below in the comments what you think of OU camp so far. Anything come out of camp that surprises you? We want to do a little new segment right
Mason,
now.
I want to say, can I say one thing really quick to Mark's comment? Because I want to get this out there that when I watched that video of Lincoln and he gave that answer, I was like, this man is leaving next year. I was like, this man is leaving to the NFL. He's like not going to the Big Ten. That was my initial response.
He wants to coach Malachi Nelson against Michigan in December?
No.
Hell no.
So yeah,
Hell no.
I just wanted to get that out there
No
while we
shot.
were talking about that video because I thought it was quite funny.
Perfect. Okay. We'll touch on the conference realignment hopefully in a little bit. So, new segment idea. We got overperformer, underperformer. We're each going to pick someone who we think will overperform in the 2023 season, while we'll also pick someone who will underperform at the same time. Follow along with us in the comments while you're with us. Who do you think will overperform and underperform on this team this year? I'll go ahead and kick us off, get us started with the overperformer. That's what we're going to start with. My overperformer this year, I think, is Andrell Anthony. We've heard some good things out of camp and out of press conferences about Andrell Anthony. I think he has the size and the talent and the speed to be good with this offense. Matt made a really good point earlier. We don't know who the number 2 is. We don't know who's going to step up as the number 2 in this wide receiver room. I think Andrell Anthony has a very strong case to be that guy. All due respect to Drake Stoops, all due respect to Gavin Freeman. If they are your number 2 option, you are not good enough on offense. You're just not. And I think Andrell Anthony is the kind of athlete that needs to be your number 2 option on this offense to be a solid offense. That's who I pick. Andrell Anthony, my overperformer.
Mason, I got to follow up with you because I had the same thought process when picking my overperformer, but I wanted to pick someone who is coming in freshman, Jacquez Petaway, 5'10", 185, who's just got lightning speed. And we've seen all of his highlight tapes. And I feel like this is a guy, maybe not number 2, but definitely can fill in a number 3 or maybe number 2 by the end of the year if he gets enough playing time and has a good fall camp. I think he's the guy that I'm looking to really outperform even as a freshman, because I feel like he's got a very similar skill set to Marvin Mims and his shiftiness. So really looking forward to someone stepping up. I think it could be possibly Petaway even as a freshman.
Soonerscoop.com had a really good video of Jacquez Petaway at practice today, and he looks every bit the part. He's a stud. All right, who else has an overperformer?
Petaway looks like a monster. I'll go next. Mine is Emeka Megwa at 6 foot, 207 pounds. He transferred to us last August, I believe, coming from the University of Washington. He's been on practice squads for the last 2 years of college. He's had some injuries, but this is also a high school guy from Texas who had offers from Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Okay? He's hungry, and I know it. If we're up big against Arkansas State and SMU and he's getting in reps, I think he could be a guy who outperforms and shines and comes into that 3, maybe number 2 running back spot for us, especially if there's injuries along the way, and especially if we're rotating a lot. I got Emeka Megwa as my overperformer.
And that leaves me to round us out.
No, you got me too.
Oh, I thought you'd already gone.
Do you want me to go first
now.
so you can go
No,
last?
I got it. No, it's okay. I'll just go now because I already did the thing. Give me my bad, Ryan. Sophomore tight end Jason Llewellyn. Now, last season we only really got to see Llewellyn play in special teams lineups. He was an active participant on those, which shows me he's willing to get out there and play. Shows me he's going to go hit people when he needs to. He's got the speed to get down the field, make a play. All that stuff is great. The real reason I think we could see him overperform is last season, each of those 2 tight end sets involved Braden Willis, who was sort of our flex athlete, and Daniel Parker, who was a little bit more of the physical blocking tight end that, every time he was in there, look, we threw it to him a couple, but we shouldn't have, right? I think that Jason Llewellyn has a very good opportunity to overtake the Blake Smiths and the Josh Fanuels of the world and become that number 2 tight end in those 2 tight end sets that can act as maybe a more athletic and softer handed version of what we got from Daniel Parker last year. He's a much larger body. I looked at it just the other day, but he is over 250 pounds. He's a large man. And that just brings a different element to that position. and to the makeup and the physicality of the line of scrimmage, when someone like that's able to really carve a role for themselves. I think there's an opening there, and I think he's shown himself to be someone who can really play their way into it. So give me Jason Llewellyn. Ryan, round us out.
Yeah. To much dismay of Mason Prince, I'm going to be picking Danny Stutzman in my overperform. So, and the reason that I'm doing this is because he has already like a ton of pressure on him this year to perform well. We've talked about it a lot. He's the leader of the defense. I believe it was Mason or Mark, I don't remember, or even Gann, who called him like a mini Brent Venables. And like he has so much pressure on him. He's doing the radio show. Like we've talked about all these things. And I think he's going to show us that he can do all of this. And I think he's going to meet those expectations and exceed those expectations. I think this is a breakout year for Danny. I think it's going to happen. We've talked about this a lot, that like he's that close. If he closes in a couple times, he would have a million more tackles, right? He's really close to getting there. And I have felt for like everything that's been happening, a shift and a more confidence that they are putting in this man to be able to do this and to be able to step up and lead this team. And if we're going to trust our coaching staff, we have to trust their decision making around who is going to lead these teams. And if they're putting this much faith in Danny, there is something there that maybe we haven't seen before. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, I think he's going to show us that, like, yes, he should be the leader of this. And yes, he can like step up and say, I'm good enough to do this. I'm the best out here, and I'm going to show you. So personally, I think Danny is going to overperform. I could shoot myself in the foot there, but that is my first instinct.
We're going to transition to underperforming now, and I'm going to go ahead and start because I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Ryan's point. Not that Danny Stutsman's my underperformer, but Ryan made a really good point earlier about how tough this system is for linebackers, especially. Brent Venables is so hard on his linebackers, and we know how hard it was last season for these linebackers to figure out how to be the leader on the field. I think it's going to be tough for Dasan McCullough coming in. I think we have really high hopes for the guy, but man, it's a whole new verbiage. It's a whole new way to understand defense and defensive philosophies. And you, like Ryan said, there is so much pressure on these linebackers to not only perform, but perform well and put everybody else in position to perform well. I don't know how Dasan handles that. And I hope he handles it well, but if there's a guy on the defense who I think has the ability to not exceed our expectations this year for him, I think Dasan is that guy. And I hope I'm wrong, obviously.
Especially because the expectations are just so high of him right now.
Yeah. He's a highly touted transfer coming in, and you expect an experienced, you expect an experienced guy to come in there day one, have no problems. I think it's going to be tough. I really do. I really do.
And Mace, I want to piggyback on that one for mine, because I'm feeling the same way, except on the offense side, with Austin Stogner. And I'm picking him for underperform, because I do feel like, he's been at OU before in a different system, but he's coming back, and, everyone is expecting him to be the guy, like the tight end. We've had incredible tight ends at this university over the past 10 to 15 years. And like everyone is saying he needs to be the next one. And, he was already decent when he was with us. I wouldn't call him maybe like great, but like a solid player. I am concerned about him coming in. And I know Levy's system is a little bit easier to learn than, say, like BV's on like the defensive side. But still, it's a new system. It's a new team coming in as a transfer. A lot of pressure on tight ends. I really like Mark's pick of Jason Llewellyn as kind of like overperforming in these young tight ends that are coming in that we've talked about in the past, and like how big they are and how fast they can be, and really like making a name for themselves this year with Braden Willis leaving us last year. So like I have a lot of high hopes for him, and I still have those hopes. My gut just tells me that it's going to be harder for him to perform up to those standards because there is so much pressure on him in that tight end position, because really there's no one else that, like, he's the one that we're all looking at. He's the one that we're all looking for. And that to me makes it seem like I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. It's a new system for him. So that's my underperformer prediction.
I think out of any one of our underperformers, I disagree with that one the most. Just because if you look at our wide receiver core, we don't know who's going to get over. I don't know if anyone will get 10 touchdowns. Marvin Mims only got 6 touchdowns. There's going to be so much room in this offense for Austin Stogner to catch the ball and look great, and that's why I think he will easily overperform this season.
Great banter. Great banter.
Great banter.
I'll go ahead.
Great banter.
Great
All I would say is, Pat, I love the optimism. I hope you're right. It's a different system. It's a different quarterback. We'll see how good he is.
Or banter.
I think I have to be right, honestly.
Banter.
On this one.
You have to be right.
For the
Okay.
success of the offense, yeah.
Matt, who you got?
Yeah, guys that you mentioned last week when Mark was talking about the offensive linemen and potentially filling that gap. I think at left guard, right, was the only position that was a little bit up in the air, correct? So it seems like it's really between the two guys you mentioned, Savion Byrd or possibly freshman Caden Green. If it's going to be anybody, you would think it would be Savion Byrd, being a redshirt sophomore, coming in his second year, redshirted back in 2021. He had offers from big programs. So I'm going down to Ryan Tyson or the whoever mentioned the other programs. He had offers from Alabama, Auburn, Texas, and LSU. That was Patrick who mentioned that. So pretty big offers. He was a highly rated offensive lineman in his class. So if this is going to be the opportunity for him, it's going to be this year. I feel like if he hasn't really been playing that much, especially with the makeshift offensive linemen we have had over the past few years, it's going to be hard for me to see if he really fits in there and outperforms at any level, given that his past already. I hope that's not the case, because our offensive line needs to show up this year, and there's a lot of question marks other than Tyler Guyton, I believe, on the right side. So I think it's going to be Savion Byrd on the offensive line.
Some
Mark, round us out.
commenters have also said, watch out for Walter Rouse on that, in that position. I don't know.
No, he's a tackle.
Well, then the commenters are wrong. I'm just speaking for them.
The commenters are wrong.
Yeah.
Good banter,
That's
though,
what
Patrick.
I'm
Good
saying.
banter.
Yeah, no, I had to call them out. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, good banter.
Good.
We
Thanks.
fact
Mark.
check you.
Mark, will you round us
Amazing.
out, man?
I think Pat still has to go.
Pat, do you still have to
Does
go?
that still have to go?
Yeah, you want me to go first or last?
Yeah, come on, Pat. Give it to us.
You know what? You go last. You go. Let's round
Sure.
out with Patrick.
Yeah.
I'll take up that 4th spot in this centipede. And I'm going to talk about someone we all love, but someone we haven't seen enough from, and it's not his fault. Jaren Kanak, JK7. Last year's poster child for what we want the defense to look like, I'd say. The thing to me is less that Jaren Kanak is a bad player or not talented. He's going to be better than he was last season. The thing is, we have options now, and development is not always linear. So if JK7 needs until his junior year to really break out, one, that's not that surprising. That happens with players every single season, and we shouldn't be giving up on him just because a year goes awry. And two, the options behind him are a lot better than they were last season. You can check the tape, folks. Episode 70, months ago, I was talking about Connor Neer coming in from Ferris State, 2-time All-American linebacker, and he's making plays in camp already. He's an option to take snaps at that Mike position if JK is not ready. They told him that when he transferred. Behind him, Kobe McKenzie looked great in camp, obviously, or in spring ball. Obviously not great enough to avoid going out and getting Connor Neer, but that's what a guy like Coach Venables does, is brings in the best of the best to make you compete against the best of the best. That's what makes me think we might see less of Jaren Kanak than we're expecting. Is he gets out there maybe the first 3 games, isn't very solid, can't get it right. You're going to see Connor Neer play football. I have no doubt about that. If he doesn't take the job outright. So that's my guy for underperformer. I love JK7. I think he might be, pound for pound the best athlete on the team, but sometimes it doesn't translate immediately. And if it takes until his junior year, I wouldn't be blown away by that.
Let us know down below in the comments. You're over and underperformer. Speaking
Patrick
of
still has to
commenters,
go.
oh, Patrick, goodness gracious.
I mean, I don't
Guys.
have
Go,
to.
Patrick. Hey,
No,
speak
go.
up, man.
You do.
Okay.
Earlier,
Okay.
Pat
Dude.
said agreed. So yeah, you got to go. bud.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So I have
Matt, get the
Ethan
watch.
Downs. And the main reason for that is because he's predicted to be first team all Big 12. And so that's our threshold. And so I think he's going to underperform that. I don't think he'll be bad at all. I think he'll just underperform that. The main reason being just the transfers that we've brought in with Trace Ford and Rondell Bothroyd, both being able to play that position. PJ Adebore being an absolute freak who can get some snaps into. I just think we're going to rotate those players a lot.
Bryson Thomas.
And he's just not going to maybe get that play time to perform to the level of being in the Big 12 first team. I think others could. I think that could be a problem across the defensive line if we're rotating a lot. So that's my not underperformer, but I could see us not seeing him a lot on the field, like same with Mark's example of Jake.
I love how logically you took this exercise, Patrick, of like, okay, what is like the expectation line, and are they going to fall above it or below it?
When you said it, it was
good
so
stuff,
easy,
man.
and it's like, oh yeah, good stuff.
Patrick, Ethan Downs was another guy on my radar. So you kind of hit it on the head for me right there. I have a commenter of the week. I want to get our commenter of the weekend real quick. This comes from a subscriber. Subscriber alert, Matt.
Hello, welcome on in.
That's good.
Look at his face. Look at his smile. He's so goofy.
Subscriber, Mr. JB Ross. He commented on our episode last week, and he said, "This staff is recruiting like a championship staff. In addition to competing for 5-star talent, they're locking down the in-state talent that Riley and company used to snub. Then they just kill us at Ohio State, Texas Tech, etc." Thank you, Mr. JB Ross, for your comment last week, and be our commenter of the week next week. Comment on every single one of our videos. We read every single one of them. All right, boys. Moving on to the next segment. We got some conference realignment. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Conference realignment time, and it was a doozy this past week. I didn't really feel the need for an EPC for stuff that really didn't involve.
I mean,
OU.
I wanted to be in there. I didn't want to text it. We've been dropping a lot of content.
Content is king, but we're about to have a long football season, and EPCs need to be used sparingly. I think. Yeah. So, the big news really is Washington and Oregon leaving the Pac-12, going to the Big Ten. And then you have which ones went to the Big 12?
Utah.
Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Utah.
And one more, because we got to 16.
What is it, Mark?
It's like 5, because we got the 4 corner. Am I wrong?
No,
yeah,
great answer, Mark.
I'm wrong.
I'm
wrong.
That's
great answer, Mark.
But honestly,
shut up, Gan.
I feel like that kind of sorted itself out in the best way it could with those schools. There's not anyone left in the Pac-12 that I would really be like, oh, I wish they got into the Big 10 or into the Big 12.
Dude, so, Stanford, California.
Should we talk about
Powerhouse
Stanford
programs.
and Cal potentially going to the ACC, which seems
that's horrible.
So weird.
I mean,
so
what?
Weird.
I just don't. I understand things change and all that stuff, but like the thing that bothers me the most is college football was such a regional thing. It was such a regional sport, and you played people in your area for bragging rights within your area. Like say the Big 12 now. You're not growing up next to a Utah fan in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Like, who are you gonna brag about that with? You're not growing up next to BYU fans in Houston. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So now you have all the people in California and in Oregon's no longer going to be playing Oregon State. It's just a weird thing to me. The Big Ten already started it when they were kept going west and adding Nebraska and the other schools, not Colorado, but the other Big Ten schools out there. It doesn't feel regional anymore. And I know everything's a money grab, but you also have to think about the softball players from Oregon made a really good point. You know, they went to Oregon to allow their parents and their family to watch them play, and they wanted to play somewhere close to home. Now, half of your schedule is going to be across the country, not playing where your parents can see you. And anyone who does want to see you is going to have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to get across the country to see you. I get that football drives everything. I understand that completely. But at some point, we have to think about the umpteen other sports that this conference realignment affects.
No, Mason, that's where I was going to go with my point is it seems like it's all about football is driving all these realignments, which it is. It's the biggest revenue in all the sports. And that's why they're making all these changes and realigning. But you're not even considering softball, baseball, basketball, like teams that have to travel a multitude of times over the season. So you're not going to be in class as much. You're going to be on the road more. And honestly, for the student athlete, it's just going to be tougher and tougher for those other sports because, imagine teams like Arizona that's got to travel all around, or whoever it is has to travel across the state.
To your point, Matt, think of softball. Football travels 5-6 times a year.
Right.
Softball, you play 40 games a year.
Yeah.
You're traveling for 20 of them.
Yeah, and not everyone has the ability to charter flights. You know, a lot of them have buses. So, I mean, all these teams don't always have all of this money to be able to travel in luxury, or I wouldn't say luxury, but the accommodations aren't going to be as good for these other sports who have to play 40, 60, 80 games a year and travel a lot across the country. How are they going to do class? How are they going to do homework, tests? I mean, to be a student athlete for some of those teams are just going to be super, super difficult. And I feel for them.
The last 20 years, TV companies have gotten universities hooked on their cash flows like cocaine. The only one who abstained because they had a product they knew would make money on CBS without needing to sell themselves to the devil was Daddy Greg Sankey and the SEC. Now we see all of the movement that these university presidents and ADs are putting their student athletes through. And you see even more if you did before that the game is not about the student athlete. The game is about the check. And you know that going in, but with every step of the way, they solidify your understanding of it. Greg Sankey's a king, man. He was interviewed today as we're recording this on Tuesday, and I don't have even like a transcript in front of me, but he talks about how he's very glad he wasn't a part of this line of realignment because something was different last week. Something not like USC and Oregon or USC and UCLA going. I mean, a little, right? But not like OU and Texas going. It was more blatant. It's more icky.
It feels dirty.
Across the Rubicon.
It really does.
Yeah,
Well, and I think like
Rubicon.
the thing that is the most icky about it is like if you hear these statements from some of the Pac-12 teams or past Pac-12 teams now, like going to the Big 12, like Arizona State, like they don't seem excited about it. They're just like, I mean, I guess if like we have to, like we don't have any other choice. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not going to West Virginia. Isn't that what the athletic director of Arizona or Arizona State said?
Said he's gonna send his deputy out there.
Yeah. Just already saying stuff like that. Like they're not happy about it. It seems like no one is happy about this. And yet
they were
here
over
we
a
are.
barrel.
I know. And here we are. And like, yeah, this whole Pac-12 stuff, like ultimately it comes down probably more to just like bad leadership. More on that in our MVP LVP section. But like, I don't know, man. I think we, OU and Texas, started this. We started this recent talk of realignment. It started with us last year. Then it went to USC and UCLA. And then the dominoes just started to fall, right? You guys always see those memes of like, oh, you just wanted to play Nebraska at night. And now it's led to like the dissolution of the Pac-12. And like we did in a certain way do this because, and I'm not taking like full responsibility for that. I'm just saying like people saw us moving to the SEC and they're like, holy shit, look at all that money that the SEC is making because we moved there. Like, we want a chunk of that. We need a chunk of that. And like, we're going to do anything in our power to get it. USC, UCLA, huge brands. We shouldn't be with the Pac-12. We should be with the Big Ten, who's going to make us more money. Oregon, Washington, also big names. Going out at the last minute and saying like, this deal is not good enough for us. We have something else in our back pocket and we're going to take it. I don't care if that means we have to travel across the country every week. We are going to have more money in our pockets. Yes, they're not, I don't think, thinking about anything other than football. They're not thinking about the other student athletes that are going to have to deal with the repercussions of this. But at the end of the day, like, this comes down to money, and it comes down to bad leadership, and it comes down to bad decision making, and a little bit of a broken system when it comes like we're venturing into that territory where we're starting to get like, oh my God, we have the Big Ten here and the SEC here and the Big 12. Who knows what the hell's going to happen to the ACC? They might get Stanford in California because that makes absolutely zero sense with the Atlantic or American Athletic Conference or whatever it's called. I think Atlantic Coastal. Yeah, Atlantic Coastal Conference. And Stanford and Cal, two schools on the Pacific Ocean, are somehow in that conference. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it fractured an entire system. I think the SEC will be fine. We're pretty close in proximity in like the southeastern part of the country. But some of these others, yeah, you guys are totally right. Like,
Pat.
Yeah. I'm just interested to see what Clemson and Florida State do. That's kind of the last two dominoes to fall here. And after that, maybe we'll do an EPC.
I think the ACC holds strong just because, yeah, you have Clemson, yeah, you have Florida State, and you have Miami, but you also have college basketball powerhouses in Duke and North Carolina that can be, adults in the room at some time saying like, hey, this can't all be about football. Like, I don't know. That's just up the top of my head. Matt, I saw you raise your hand. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like Ryan made the point. It started with OU Texas. I actually would go back further. I think it actually started with Texas coming out with the Longhorn Network on ESPN, that big money deal they did. I think that started the real dominoes for what Mark mentioned, the cash grab with all the TV deals. I mean, you saw how much money that they were in the partnership with ESPN and Texas, how much money generated off that. I think that was a real domino that really started all the realignment. Because again, talked about before, it's all about the money. People want to see a better product. That's why all these realignments are happening. But I actually think it started with the Longhorn Network and just kind of slowly trickled it through.
See, I think it actually started with the end of the Southwest Conference in 1996.
That's
really
just
like keep going back.
Really just broke up what we knew to be college sports at the time.
It's when A&M left. Everybody blame A&M. It's always A&M's fault.
Yeah. Really, to me, it started with the invention of the forward pass, if we're going to be quite honest. But let us know down below in the comments what you're thinking of conference realignment. I want anybody else to get in there on this if you had anything else to add. For me, it just, again, I'm going back to what makes college football and not the NFL was the regionality of it. And that no longer exists. And to Mark's point, in the SEC, it does. And you can call us biased if you want. Like, I don't really care. You look at a map and you look at the SEC map, those are southeastern schools. Oklahoma and Texas, you can make the point they're a little more west than you want it to be, but they're still a little south. But in terms of, you look at that map and you look at a map of now the Big Ten, it's not even close.
So I already talked quite extensively, so I'm just going to make this point really like quickly. I think honestly for football, for very specifically for football, this is going to be a lot of fun. I like the idea of like getting to see USC and Michigan play. Like I like the idea of Alabama OU. I like the idea of a random matchup in the Big 12 that anybody can win, right? Like that's fun. It sucks for every other sport, pretty much, maybe except basketball. But it's detrimental to some sports, and that sucks.
On May 25th, Greg Sankey was quoted for an article on On3 saying, when we expanded, we added 95 miles basically to our travel, our longest trip. And our longest trip is shorter than the shortest trip that the LA schools will have in the Big Ten, said Sankey. We are still educational entities. We are still moving people from class into class, and final exams matter, as does scheduling high-level competition. That's talking to parents. That's what that's doing, man. He's the only one who gets it. And I think unless they add those ACC schools, I think they're done expanding, because you don't have to have a school in California to have Californians watching you. You have to have the best football in the country.
Yeah, 100%. Matt, Pat, anything else to add? I just keep going back to thinking of Lincoln Riley and USC in Ann Arbor in November. It's snowing sideways. It's freezing.
Oh, he's not going to be
and
there.
He's just thinking, how did I get here? How did we get here? And all those Southern California kids, how did we get here? Like, why is this where we are right now? It's hysterical. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait to see it. Let us know down below in the comments also as well. All right, boys. PGP MVP of the week times. We'll wrap up the show with this. Patrick, I want to start with you, brother. What do you got? Patrick, muted or am I? Okay.
No, Patrick is muted.
I didn't really have a good one, but I'll kind of go with Patrick Mahomes, even though I'm not a big fan. But
what?
Quarterback was a very good documentary, and now that he won the Super Bowl while doing it. He won the Super Bowl. Other quarterbacks in the league are saying they won't do it because the timing's not right. We're going on a Super Bowl run. Jalen Hurts said it. Lamar Jackson, I think, said it. Well, Patrick Mahomes did it and easily won the Super Bowl. So that's not a good excuse in my mind. It was a good documentary.
Patrick Mahomes, also the number one ranked player in the new NFL 100. No, number 3 is Jalen Hurts. All due respect to Jalen Hurts, that's freaking wild. That is not, he was unranked last year, and now he's number 3. That's
it's a players poll.
I know, but like
they don't know football.
Good banter,
dude,
Mark.
That's
Good
just
banter.
That's just wild. Like, he didn't come from nowhere. He was on the Eagles roster last year and played, or 2 years ago, I should say. You saw him play. He went from being unranked to the 3rd best. I don't buy that. I just don't buy that. But I think Jalen's great. I think Jalen's great. I think he's really good.
Boomer.
OU Masters alum. Okay, Ryan, who's your MVP?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of similar to all what we talked about with realignment, but LVP this week, George Kliavkoff, I think is how you say his last name. He's the commissioner of the Pac-12. I think this, we talked a lot about already how it's all about money. And I agree to an extent, but I think there's also just wrong leadership choices. And I think Kliavkoff made quite a few wrong leadership choices that drove some of these teams away. And a lot of people, I think, coming out have mentioned that, just around there were some choices that we didn't agree with. The entirety of that Apple deal was like a complete mess. Hearing reports that an hour before they were supposed to meet, they're like, oh, we're feeling good. Everyone's locked in. We're about to sign a grant of rights deal. And then an hour later, Oregon and Washington are gone. Like an hour later, they're gone. And that to me is it's not just down completely to the money. There is something else there. And I feel like it's a lack of security. People feel a lack of security. They feel that this person was not going to be able to lead them to success. And so that's my LVP. And now he's got 4 schools in his conference, and 2 of them are about to leave, probably the ACC. And who knows what happens after that? Like what happens to
Deader
Oregon
than dead.
State? Who knows? No idea.
Deader than
But
dead.
like
Deader than dead.
LVP, George Kliavkoff.
Hilarious. Mark Matt, who wants to go?
Matt.
Mark's been very selfless this entire time, so I'm going to let him round it out because, man, he's so handsome. And he's giving really good banter today. We've had a lot of losers this week. I'm going to go with an actual MVP. I'm going to go Oklahoma softball, Patty Gasso. Keep loading them up, acquiring in the transfer portal the top pitcher left, and All-American Kelly Maxwell. That's just really a double dip, getting an All-American pitcher and from your rival school in Stillwater, Oklahoma, coming on down. She ranked in pretty much every statistical category that you would want when it comes to strikeouts, hits allowed, strikeouts per inning, everything that you want. It's about as close as you can get to Jordy Ball, even though she's not close to Jordy Ball, but I will take it all dang day. OU keeps loading up this 3-time national championship team. Go for that 4-peat. Kelly Maxwell will be one of the big reasons for that if it happens.
I had
OU softball, Patty
I had a OSU fan tell me this week that Kelly Maxwell wasn't very good.
Yeah, well, they
And
clearly don't want
I
softball.
started laughing. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's just upset, I think. So, or who
Okay.
he or she.
I'll let Mark round it out. My LVP of the week, I'm going back to being negative. Sorry, Matt, is TV decision makers. Let's start off with what Colin Cowherd said today on his show. Colin Cowherd said he had a list of quarterbacks who can't win the Super Bowl this year. Typical list, Colin Cowherd list, hating on people who he doesn't think have what's enough to win the big game. On that list, Dwayne Haskins, the recently deceased quarterback, he can't win a Super Bowl. Whoever let that happen deserves to be fired. And the fact that Colin Cowherd didn't catch it before his producers put it in the show deserves for Colin Cowherd to face some kind of reprimand, because that is unacceptable and ridiculous. Colin Cowherd is paid millions and millions of dollars each year. Fox touts him out every single day to show him to the nation, touting him as this great new thing that we need to watch and deserves our attention. He doesn't deserve our attention anymore. And if you watch Colin Cowherd, I'm sorry, I got nothing to say to you other than you're a loser. Don't do it anymore. Also, the Baltimore Orioles owner, his name is John Angelos. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, Orioles announcer Kevin Brown has been suspended by the Baltimore Orioles after a comment that he made on July 23rd, where he talked about how much the Baltimore Orioles have struggled against the Tampa Bay Rays in recent. He pointed out that the Rays have won 15 of the last 16 series at Tropicana Field, and was quoting an on-screen graphic that the television company Masson, Maryland Sports Network, put on the air. He didn't say anything wrong, anything unfactual. In fact, didn't even state an opinion, just said what was happening with the team. The Orioles didn't like that, so they suspended Brown, and the internet is aflame. Shame on the Baltimore Orioles. You're cowards, and I hope you lose the division. They're leading the division for the first time in who knows how long. They had a record-setting 116-loss season 2 years ago. They're one of the best stories in baseball, and now everyone hates you. Congratulations. Mark.
Yeah, sort of 2 MVPs. One big one, August recruiting, baby. Let's see these commitments roll in. I think this time next month, you're going to see a highly supplemented class of 2024 for the University of Oklahoma football team. The coaching staff has been getting after it, and this will be the month where you see a lot of the fruit come to bear. And my sneaky VP is our guy, Patrick. I'm working on something a little behind the scenes, and Patrick's helped a lot.
Love that. Stay tuned for the behind the scenes action. It's gonna be awesome.
Good.
It's gonna be awesome. All right. Anybody else? Anything before we get out of here? Perfect. You can follow us on Twitter Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Threads. Follow us on TikTok, folks. Subscribe to the channel. Tell 5 friends that you watch the Program Guys. Tell 5 friends. Tell them to watch. Tell them to subscribe. Helps us out more than you know. Trying to hit 2,000 subscribers before the season starts in 3 short weeks, my friends. 3 short weeks until football. Cannot wait. 2 weeks until week 0. How about that? 2 weeks until week 0. Gonna be amazing. All right.
Dude, next
That's gonna
week we
do it.
got to get our best week 0 game.
Oh, that's
that-
right. We do.
Is that the
Next week we got to
is-
start talking about them.
Is week 0
do.
the Ireland game?
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Notre
It's like
Dame
the first
and-
one.
It's not Notre Dame, is it? Who is it?
Patrick.
It is. It's
It-
Navy and Notre Dame.
Na-
Ireland.
Navy
Go
and
ahead,
Notre
Pat.
Dame. Got it.
Patrick.
We're going to have a college football pick'em league. We're
Mm.
going to tweet that out tomorrow. Please join. We're working on giveaways. Join our pick'em league.
And rowdy
Giveaways.
ways.
Giveaways and rowdy ways. Gotta love it. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Patrick, take us out, brother.
Keep pushing it, baby.
3, 2, 1.
There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being